Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir, bienvenue à 24/60. Nous vous présentons ce soir une émission spéciale, une rencontre exclusive avec Omar Khadr. Il est le premier enfant soldat à avoir été condamné pour crime de guerre de l'histoire. Il est aussi le seul ressortissant étranger détenu à Guantanamo à ne pas avoir été rapatrié volontairement par son gouvernement. Il aura fallu plusieurs décisions des tribunaux, notamment la Cour suprême du Canada, pour reconnaître que ses droits constitutionnels avaient été bafoués. C'est d'ailleurs la base d'une entente qui suscite aujourd'hui autant de controverses, une controverse qui ne cesse de prendre de l'ampleur, notamment sur la scène politique canadienne. Le gouvernement devait-il payer pour ses erreurs en plus d'offrir ses excuses et, ce faisant, récompenser quelqu'un que plusieurs considèrent encore comme un terroriste? J'ai posé la question à Omar Khadr, que j'ai rencontré hier dans la région de Toronto. Mais tout d'abord, un rappel de son parcours. Né à Toronto en 1986, Omar Khadr est encore tout jeune quand il déménage au Pakistan avec sa famille. Son père s'est déjà battu en Afghanistan aux côtés d'Oussama Ben Laden. Quand les talibans prennent le pouvoir à Kaboul, il amène ses fils s'entraîner dans les camps d'Al-Qaïda.
Terrorism against our nation will not stand.
Après le 11 septembre 2001, les Américains envahissent l'Afghanistan. Quelques mois plus tard, le 27 juillet 2002, lors d'un affrontement avec les forces spéciales, Omar Khadr est gravement blessé. Il est arrêté et détenu à Bagram, en Afghanistan. Omar Khadr a 15 ans quand il est transféré au camp de Guantanamo, où il va passer 10 ans. Il sera accusé 4 ans plus tard d'avoir lancé la grenade qui a tué le sergent Christopher Speer.
These are killers. These are terrorists.
À Guantanamo, Omar Khadr est torturé, privé de sommeil et gardé en isolement pendant des mois. En 2003 et 2004, sans avocat, sans aucune accusation pesant contre lui, sans service consulaire canadien, Omar Khadr est interrogé par des agents du Service canadien de renseignement de sécurité. Leur but, donner de l'information aux Américains. La rencontre est douloureuse pour Omar Khadr. Il est le seul enfant à Guantanamo et aussi le seul occidental dont le rapatriement n'a pas été demandé par son gouvernement. Pourtant, 2 jugements de la Cour suprême en 2008 et 2010 confirment tour à tour que le Canada a violé les droits d'Omar Khadr, que le pays doit réparer ce tort de la manière qu'il estime être la meilleure. En 2010, Omar Khadr est traduit pour crime de guerre devant une commission militaire à Guantanamo. Menacé de la prison à vie, il plaide coupable à 5 chefs d'accusation pour une peine de 8 ans sur le conseil de son avocat, Dennis Edney. En échange, on lui permet d'être extradé vers le Canada après 1 an.
Omar Khadr is a well-known supporter of the Al-Qaeda terrorist network.
Or, le gouvernement Harper multiplie les procédures pour retarder le retour de Khadr. En septembre 2012, il est finalement transféré dans une prison à sécurité maximale à Kingston, en Ontario.
Notre gouvernement empêchera avec vigueur toute tentative de mesures judiciaires visant à atténuer la peine qu'il a reçue pour ces actes.
En 2015, un 3e jugement de la Cour suprême du Canada précise que la peine de 8 ans infligée par la Commission militaire américaine doit être servie comme une peine pour adolescents dans un établissement provincial. Le 7 mai 2015, après 13 ans de détention, Omar Khadr est libéré sous caution, une décision contestée une fois de plus par le gouvernement canadien.
I would like to thank the Canadian public for trusting me and giving me a chance.
Le 7 juillet 2017, le gouvernement Trudeau met fin à une poursuite civile de 20 millions que les avocats de Khadr avaient intenté contre le Canada pour complicité dans sa détention arbitraire et son traitement par les militaires américains. Omar Khadr reçoit une compensation dont le montant n'est pas confirmé, mais estimé à plus de 10 millions de dollars.
The Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects all Canadians, every one of us, even when it is uncomfortable. This is not about the details or merits of the Khadr case. When the government violates any Canadian's charter rights, we all end up paying for it.
Ce paiement est une gifle en pleine figure pour les hommes et les femmes en uniforme qui font face à un danger incroyable pour assurer notre sécurité tous les jours.
Aujourd'hui, Omar Khadr n'est pas un homme complètement libre. Un tribunal civil américain l'a condamné à payer 134 millions de dollars aux familles de 2 soldats touchés dans l'attaque qui l'impliquait. Khadr tente aussi de faire annuler son plaidoyer de culpabilité devant la commission militaire, car elle aurait été obtenue sous la contrainte. Une bataille qui pourrait prendre plusieurs années. Good afternoon.
Bonjour.
Thank you for being... Merci. Merci d'être avec nous à 2460, Omar Khadr, et bienvenue. Thank you very much. Omar Khadr, bonsoir. Bienvenue à 2460.
Bonjour. Merci. How are
Thank
you
you
doing?
for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Omar Khadr, this is a very important moment in your life.
Yes.
This settlement with the government after being detained 13 years of your life, nearly half of your life.
Yes.
What does it represent for you?
It represents a page turned in my life, and hopefully a new page to start.
Did you expect such a controversy?
I think I expected it. I had hoped that the last 2 years would have given people an opportunity to know me and make my case less controversial, but this is how it came out.
How do you feel about that controversy?
People are entitled to have their opinion. I'm not upset or troubled by it, but it brings, unwanted attention. And that is something that I don't want right now. I just want to be able to just blend in and be able to start or to continue my life.
The settlement was based on judicial decisions, 3 from the Supreme Court of Canada, 1 following the Supreme Court of the United States, different reports confirming that your rights were abused, violated, a breach of the rule of law by Canadian officials. Now you must face another trial, the one from the public, of some part of the public opinion.
Yes.
What do you feel about that?
This public opinion court, I think, is hopefully is less affecting and less damaging for me, because in the past my freedom and my safety were dependent on the judgment from courts. But right now it's public opinion. It does make things a little bit harder if the opinion is too controversial, but I think we're going to be able to grow from this experience.
How do you expect to grow?
For me, I'm going to get a better appreciation of how people feel about my case. I'm going to get a better appreciation on how to deal with people who have a negative view of me. But I think it's going to be a growing experience for the Canadian conscience, for everybody in Canada.
Another challenge for you also, because we're faced with this situation, human rights on one side being violated, your rights. Prime Minister Trudeau said the law, the Constitution is for everyone, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yes. And this experience, my experience, is going to make everybody a little bit uncomfortable, but it's going to make us ask the questions. And once there are questions, evidently somebody's going to answer them. So it's a good debate. It's unfortunate that it's going to be a little bit hard for me to deal with, but I think it's a good experience for Canada.
Because you hope that the settlement would restore your reputation. The reputation is murderer, terrorist, killer, son of the first Canadian terrorist family. How can you go against that? How can you go against that? The people who, it's been said again today, it's been said since the settlement.
The thing is, the settlement, I don't think it has anything to do with these titles. These titles come up out of frustration, but this settlement is not the cause or the reason to bring up these questions. So I'm not going to try to fight these titles because people who have this opinion, I'm not going to try to change their opinion. But you know, the public sphere is going to be faced with these questions, and you know, they're going to debate these issues. And I think as a whole, as a country, we're going to grow out of this experience.
The government has said that the settlement is based on the fact that Canadian officials did illegal acts against you, being complicit with the United States, and this is the basis for the settlement.
Yes.
What do you recall, or what do you think of this phase of your life when you were confronted by Canadian officials who could see in the video that you had hope? And we saw that in the documentary and the video. When you first met Canadian officials, you hoped they were there to support you, but things changed over a few days. And afterwards it was recognized that you had been subjected to torture before the interrogation. Are you resilient?
Well, the first day when I was met, I was not sure whether they were Canadians or not. The second day I got a little bit comfortable. I started to express my fears and my worries. And then right when I started to address these things, I knew that I have, you know, put my hope in something that had let me down. And it was very disappointing. And I think, like, I've never thought of that, but I think ever since then I've been very cautious with, you know, opening up or being too vulnerable. And I've learned from then to, you know, depend on myself and just focus on myself and, you know, not hope for anything else other than what I can do on my own.
Did you feel then that you were let down by your government?
Of course.
What does it do to you to see again those videos? Because the documentary will be broadcasted again on our channel. To see you at 17 in a jail, being interrogated.
It's never easy. And until now, I haven't allowed myself to deal with these things. I still feel that I'm not completely out of the water, as they say. I still have litigations and issues, legal issues going on, and for that reason, like, I haven't totally addressed these things. I'm just right now. I'm trying to survive and I'm trying to catch up. I'm not trying to deal with the past just yet.
No.
Yeah.
Is that part of a survival code that you imposed upon you?
Yeah, and I can't deal with something in the past that I feel that I'm still living. So the fear of going back to prison is still very real. I'm still on bail. So I can't start addressing the past and trying to find, like, to understand what happened and allow myself to kind of feel when I'm still almost living under the fear that that's still not done yet.
But you don't feel a free man completely yet?
I'm in a way better place than I was in the past.
Sure, yeah.
But there is that shadow that is looming above me that, you know, things could stop working. I might lose my appeal in the States, and, you know, I could go back to prison. So it's very, very real.
You had a very special family life. Do you feel that you were a victim of your family or father specifically at the time?
I never thought about these things.
It's too hard, or?
No, it's just, like, right now I'm only trying to focus on the things that I can change. Like, whether I was a victim or not, I don't think about these things. Like, I don't know, I'm probably still not trying to understand what happened because it's still happening right now. And like, all I'm doing right now is just trying to focus on, catching up and just building a life for myself.
But do you see yourself as a victim of the United States or the Canadian officials?
I don't like to see myself as a victim.
No?
No. It was unfortunate circumstances, and I think the Western world, we were all put in this situation. Unfortunately, I was the person who was put in prison, but it's a question that was put to all our conscience, and we dealt with it the way we did, and we are here today.
You were the first child soldier to be condemned of war crimes
Yes.
against the International Convention for Protection of Children. Do you think that the settlement make you a poster boy, an example for the world, or especially for the United States, that human rights can be combined with national security, that there's no reason to violate human rights in the name of national security?
Well, everything that happens legally sets a precedent. I might be a poster boy, but
A message to that they wanted to send, that Canada want to be a model country because it recognizes the flaws, the past, the breaches of the
well, we're lucky here in Canada to have a government and a court system that, recognizes, its achievements and also its shortcomings. We're not, as a government, as a people, as a legal system, we're not afraid to say we did something right or we did something wrong. And I think, and I hope that this would set a precedent or, make us a beacon for other places around the world.
Did you ever lose hope over the years for the issue?
I never lost hope, but I never had a lot of hope either.
Oh.
My hope was very limited and very vague. So I didn't have a specific hope that, a person or a government or a time, everything is going to be done. I had a very general hope in the goodness of people. I had a general hope that, eventually everything is going to be okay, things are going to change. So I have very general hopes.
Because you said just earlier that nothing is completely settled, except, for example, this appeal in the United States to recant your guilty plea, because it was registered under duress, tell us what was the choice at the time, if you had a choice.
The choices were, I could fight my charges in a court that made its law as it went, and even if I had won or lost, that wouldn't have changed anything. If I had won my case in the States, I would have still been detained indefinitely, and if I had lost, I would have still been detained. So I would either fight it in a system that I have no chance in winning, or I can make a plea deal, and hopefully I can come back to Canada and be able to fight it in a real court.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very hard choice. I really did not want to take the option that I had taken, because I had a sense that this would be happening, that with my confession, people are going to be able to say, well, he confessed to these things, so he is these things, he is the criminal and the killer that, he admitted to be. But I was put in a very, very hard place where I had to either say, preserve my reputation and stay in prison, or...
For 40 years, you expected the life sentence.
Nobody knows for how long.
Yeah.
Or, take on that hard choice and hopefully come to Canada where I have a better chance of fighting it, either in the court systems or in the public. Mm-hmm. I had a better chance of doing it back here.
What impact on you did all those Supreme Court decisions recognizing that you were abused? Mm-hmm. 3 decisions from the Supreme Court of Canada, yes. 1 from the Supreme Court of the United States, saying, among other things, that the military commission in front of which you were tried was a kangaroo court. Mm-hmm. What impact did it have on you? But it's part of your story, Phil.
Yeah, it made me more proud of our legal system more than anything else. Like, I could always say, you know, we actually have real courts in Canada. So it made me proud that our court system is impartial and is able to isolate itself from political influence. Yeah. And it gave me hope that it's not completely dark, it's not completely, and I'm not completely lonely. There is things going on the outside that hopefully will cause the change of my situation.
Some people don't recognize the reality of a child soldier, mm-hmm. and it's the first thing they don't recognize when they talk about you. Although teenagers cannot buy alcohol, cigarettes, or drive a car. When did you learn of the existence of such a thing as a child soldier, and how did you learn about it?
I think I didn't know about it until I talked with my lawyers. But I've had like an interesting growing experience in Cuba, and I wasn't aware of it back in the days. I only became aware of it very recently, of how I used to be in my early days in Guantanamo, and how slowly I've changed. Like, in my first days, I was very easily influenced. I would copy anybody who's around me. If I was with a group of people who were fun, I would be fun. If I was around people who were, you know, conservative, I would be conservative. I would just be a reflection of the circumstance, of the surrounding. And then eventually I started to grow and figure out who I was and who I am, and not what other people around me are. So, and I didn't recognize that until very recently, looking back on my past. Mm-hmm.
So it might have happened with your own family, your own father, the influence. How can you escape a family or the authority of a father who's been around Islamists? My family is, and my father, it's a very interesting dynamic, and I haven't taken the time to try to figure out what exactly happened. People ask me, you know, about my father, about my family. At this time of my life, I'm not blaming anybody. I don't think my family or my father would have willingly put me in a place that would endanger me. Did he make decisions that impacted us negatively? Maybe, definitely. But did he willingly intend for us to be harmed? I don't think so. Not for my family and not for my father either. But I think that is going to take time to figure out also. Mesdames, Messieurs, restez avec nous. Nous poursuivons cet entretien avec Omar Khadr tout de suite après la pause. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous poursuivons cet entretien avec Omar Khadr. Omar Khadr, just before the break, you mentioned that your it's a delicate subject, a hard subject, because it's a family. You said your father would not have put you in a situation where where you could be armed, right? But people who say today that there should not have been a settlement, it's because they have a fear that this settlement is an encouragement to jihadism. You've heard that from Lane Morris, the American soldier, even from the Conservative Party. What do you think? What do you say about that?
I don't think that is going to be an encouragement for terrorism at all. That's one. And the other thing is, we hold ourselves to the rule of law regardless of who we're dealing with. We have a law that rules us, and that's how we should carry ourselves. It doesn't matter who we are dealing with. We have a law, we have a constitution, and that's how, that's what makes us a civil society, is we have a set of rules that we live with and we abide, and that governs us. So it doesn't matter who we're dealing with. We should deal with them with these laws.
The government wanted to settle the abuse of law against you during your detention, during the time where you're being subjected to torture. And today, some people seem to want to condemn you for all of that together. No?
They have, as I said, it's their right to think what they want of me. I'm not going to try to change their opinions. But, in the end, we're all human beings. We have our flaws, we have our strengths, we have our needs, and it doesn't really matter your background. And your past is not what determines who you are. I think it's your present, and hopefully what you do for your future is what determines who we are.
Do you see yourself one day as an advocate for peace, against jihadism, or?
I do want to do something to contribute to the betterment of Canada and to our, to the betterment of humanity. But right now, I don't know exactly what that is. It could be a public life, and right now, for me, I think the best way I can contribute is through medicine and helping people personally. And if somebody needs assistance or somebody needs help that I can provide, maybe that's my contribution. It's a journey for each one of us to find and to figure out how they want to contribite to the world and making this world a better place.
The decisions towards yourself are based on rights, on laws, on the rule of law, but the reality behind this is that what you were subjected to, also torture. Is that a subject that you can talk about?
I can talk about it. Depends in which way.
Are you suffering? Are you angry? Are you resilient? I opened the question.
Yeah. When it comes to torture, I don't want to, as I said, this apology is a page turner, so I don't want to blame the government. I don't want to blame anybody for what had happened. If I'm asking people to give me a second chance, then it's only right for me, to give the government a second chance. And it's not everybody in the government. It's probably certain individuals who made bad decisions. And so that's on one level. Am I suffering? A little bit, but I think I'm strong enough, and I have a lot of support and a lot of good people around me who are helping me to get through this hardship. So there's a little bit of struggling, but each one of us, we go through our individual experiences and our individual pains, and I'm very lucky to have good people around me to help me get through this.
I heard you saying that you haven't cried your eyes out yet.
No, not yet. Not the one that takes everything out, not yet. And maybe that's just an idealistic escape, or maybe that's just an ideal way of me hoping that this would solve everything and release everything, but I don't know.
Do you feel relieved at some point?
Because of the settlement?
Because where you are at your life, where you are now in your life at 30?
Of course, there's like I'm very grateful. Like I've improved a lot. I've grown up a lot in the last 2 years. Still a lot of catching up, but I think I'm doing my best. And I am at. I have a lot of peace in me, and that's what keeps me going and keeps me focused on the positive things in life.
You want to study now?
Yes.
How important is education for you?
It's very education. I don't want to be known for my past. I don't want to be Omar Khadr, the former child soldier or former Guantanamo detainee. I want to be just Omar and what I am right now, either Omar the student or Omar hopefully the nurse, maybe human rights activist or whatever. I want to earn my personal title. I don't want to just be my past. So it's very important for me, education.
What's the path now for that, to achieve that? It's a lot. Do you see it as a challenge?
It's a little bit difficult. So there's a lot of catching up. So I just finished my high school and I just finished some prerequisites. I'm 30 years old and I'm still, I'm very behind. So there's a lot of catching up to do. So it's a little bit frustrating sometimes when, when you're in a classroom, everybody's 18 and 20
right.
And I'm 30.
Do you think you owe something to the people who supported you all those years?
I don't like to use the word owe,
no.
But as human beings, we acknowledge the good that people do to us, and we are grateful. And I am very grateful for everything that people have done for me and the opportunities they've given me and the support they've shown. And I think it's just right for me to, pass that along and do something good for somebody else. Yeah.
Why did you feel it was important to talk to us today?
Because, like the French audience, people in Quebec have been very, very supportive of me. Even though we have a language barrier, and I'm sorry for that. I learned French and then I stopped. I couldn't practice it, but there might be a small language barrier, but we have a strong human connection. And it was important for me to do this interview to acknowledge what they've done, acknowledge their effort and their support, and to say thank you so much. And merci beaucoup for everything that they have done and all of the support they have shown to me.
But what would you say to a young person who could be attracted by jihadism?
I would say that educate yourselves and acknowledge your identity. Don't ignore your identity. Acknowledge it and embrace it and learn it. So if your identity is your faith, learn it and educate yourself to become like a better thinker and a critical thinker. A lot of people, they do actions based on solely their emotions. And emotions are important, but we can't make choices just with our emotions. So like education is very important, and that prepares us to deal with controversy and be able to address it rationally and emotionally and find the best way to deal with these issues.
You talk about the importance of faith. Are you a religious person?
I am a religious person, but my faith is a personal thing. It's something that I do for myself and for my well-being and for my peace of mind. So it is a very big part of who I am, but it's a very private part of who I am.
You see yourself as a survivor of all?
I think so. I would like to move from being a survivor to thriving.
Right.
But it's not, I'm not alone. Like, there's a lot of people who helped me, so I can't take total credit for...
Yeah, because some people would say, how come he's not angry? How come he's not mad? How come he's, how come he's so at peace or with a smile? How come?
Pragmatism is a big reason. So there is no benefit. I've learned to focus on things that I can affect, and being angry or being, at war with myself or with people around me, it's not going to change the past. It's not going to change the present. It might make my life, more miserable. And just to try to focus on the good things and the things that I can change. And the thing is, beauty is way larger than the darkness. Like, even in prison, yes, there might be walls, there might be torture, but if you look beyond these things, there's a lot of beauty outside. And it's a matter of choice, of choosing whether to see, the hard concrete walls or the beautiful white paint. It's a matter of perspective.
Do you suffer from PTSD?
I was told that I have PTSD. I don't like to admit it. The thing I think I deal with most is stress, because in prison, your life is very controlled and it's very small. So you feel that I felt that I was in control of where things were at, what I did, in my limited surroundings. But right now, it's a big world, and of course you can't control everything, and there's so many things coming at you. So the feeling of loss of control makes me sometimes, anxious or stressed, and that's the hard part.
But what is it like to take your own decisions, to do what you want, to do plans for the future?
I don't know how to take things simply. I always overwhelm myself, so I get tired a lot. I want to do everything all at once. I don't take a break because I just feel that I've lost so much and I'm trying to catch up. So that gets a little bit tiring, but I enjoy when I am anonymous, when I'm somewhere where nobody knows me, when there's no expectations, nobody knows who I am, nobody expects me to be one way or another. I can just be whatever I want in that moment.
Do you have dreams for the future?
For the future, I do have dreams. I know I've said this before, I want to do something in the medical field. I want to be able to help people. And I want to be able to travel and interact with people. Like, I've always had a fascination with the human being and people. And I think it's the most fascinating thing in life is people. Each one is unique and each one has their, unique beauty within them.
Restez avec nous, mesdames, messieurs. Cet entretien se poursuit dans quelques minutes. Et au retour, l'un des avocats d'Omar Khadr se joint à la conversation. spéciale de 24-60 en compagnie d'Omar Khadr. Se joint maintenant à nous l'un de ses avocats, Maître John Phillips, qui a négocié le règlement avec le gouvernement canadien. Mr. Phillips, welcome to 24-60 again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar Khadr. This is one of your attorneys. What was it like to take the case of Omar Khadr?
When Dennis first approached me about working with him, it was a decision about taking on a case that was going to be a life changer for me, and was proud to do it for the issues. And then I have to say, after I met Omar, it became all about him and the fact that he deserved the effort that we were putting into the file and doing the work that we were doing. So both the issues and the man made a difference.
Rarely have we seen a person who has 3 judgments of the Supreme Court of Canada in its favor within a few years, even the Supreme Court of the United States, other reports. Why now is there this controversy over the settlement you have negotiated, do you think?
Well, I think if you listen to some of the statements that were made by Mr. Scheer on his press conference, you realize the importance of why these kind of cases are brought forward, not just to do justice and try to provide assistance with Omar going forward and recovering from what he's gone through. But there's a real need for the governments of the day to learn the lessons that they need to learn about violating human rights. And I have to say I was appalled to hear Mr. Scheer repeating effectively what Mr. Harper had said when he was Prime Minister, despite the decisions and in the face of the decisions of those 3 Supreme Court cases. And in the face, frankly, of the international conventions that should have governed how we treated Omar, and frankly, how the United States should have treated Omar. And it was just ignored. And so the settlements, whatever they're designed to do, or the judgments that they go to trial, are meant to send a message to Canada that it can't happen again and again. I worry that when I hear Mr. Scheer say what he said, that if he ever gets into power, it's going to happen again, and we'll have another Omar on our hands.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised that Prime Minister Trudeau mentioned that the Charter of Rights was for everyone?
I'm not
Even
surprised.
if it's uncomfortable. What did he mean? What did he mean by uncomfortable?
It means it applies to everyone, and depending, regardless of the political stripe that you have, if you're Liberal or Conservative or NDP, somebody with a position opposite to yours still is protected by those charter rights. And it may sit uncomfortably for you, but as a Canadian citizen, that is your right, and we are duty-bound, all of us, in our nation, to protect that.
Even in the context of national security and fear of terrorism?
Even more so in the context of national security and terrorism. The minute we start to lose our sense of what our fundamental civilizational values are, which are freedom of the press, rule of law, the minute you allow that to be eroded, then your national security is not worth a whole hell of a lot.
Some people say we fought those wars for democracy and to defend the rule of law. What's at stake here?
I don't know so much about the foreign policy of getting involved in engagements outside of Canada, but our domestic policy has to be one of cherishing and holding tight to those Western values, the Charter, the international conventions that make us what we are as a free country.
Are you stunned by the fact that he is confronted by, Omar Khadr now is now confronted by the Tribunal of Public Opinion, who see him now, although he wants to restore his reputation, as a murderer, a terrorist?
I think, in all honesty, this is about the only time Mr. Khadr or Omar has had a fair shot at having a real trial, and the trial in front of public opinion. You've heard him today, you've heard him before, the Canadian public's heard him before. He deserves the rights that we failed to protect. He deserves what he's getting from this.
Where were the flaws?
The flaws were in failing to recognize that he was a child in armed conflict. And we have an international convention that speaks directly to that issue, to the rights that should be accorded. We've ignored the Convention Against Terror, both in respect of Mr. Khadr, when he was both taken in baggage violations by the United States, and then later violations by both Canada and the United States in Guantanamo. And it's truly a shame that that's ignored. And I have to say, this government of the day, under Prime Minister Trudeau, has recognized the impact and importance of those conventions and the Charter of Rights. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's talked about with the rule of law.
It is now becoming a wedge issue, a political issue, not only a legal issue.
Well, I'm stunned by that, because the problem is people haven't paid attention to the actual facts. and nor have they paid attention to the law. If people want to say that that Omar should have been treated differently, despite the fact that he was 15, despite the fact that he was tortured, then if I can say this, we should withdraw our signature from the Convention Against Torture, withdraw our signature from the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and withdraw our signature from the Optional Protocol of Children in Armed Conflict. Then you can move forward. Until then, that's the rule of law.
How to convince people that there are human rights, there's also national security, but for people, it's national security and terrorism justifies the exceptional in the law. Even CISIS was blamed by the surveillance committee for not respecting his rights, but within CISIS, from a report, we learned that they believe that the laws here are an obstacle, are a challenge, and they distract for their basic mission. That's written on a memorandum between former Director Judd and Mr. Cohen from the United States.
And that's the choices we have to make as a Western civilization, is that our civilizational rights and identity are what make us what we are. If we want to drop all of those freedoms and all of those rights for the sake of national security, we'll start to look like China. It's not where I want to be.
And now for the money. People say, nobody confirmed the amount. You wouldn't?
No, I will not.
Why is it confidential?
It was done as a part of a mediated settlement. Most settlements between litigants are kept private, and this one's meant to be kept private. It's part of Omar's personal interest to have that be what he's got out of this. That's for him.
Earlier I asked him a question about the money. Some people say, why? I hope we'll give money to the Spear family. He said, that's the lawyer to talk about. What do you say to people who say he should split the money, give the money, some of the money? We don't know the amount.
I would ask somebody to look at the facts. Look at how the case was decided by default in the United States. It was built entirely on statements made by Omar from Guantanamo and Bagram and into his confession, all taken from torture, all taken when he was under 15, and all put to him as a fatal choice that he had to decide to make a guilty plea to get out or not. And when people become cognizant of that and read what's there and understand the facts, that judgment's not supportable. It's unconscionable that it would be enforced in Canada. And if I can add just one thing to that, if I put myself in the shoes of Sergeant Spears or his widow, and I think about what I'm fighting for when I'm over in Afghanistan, part of it is how other cultures, other nations are treating their children, and they're treating their children poorly. Mr. Khadr was, and he won't say this, I will, he was a victim. Under the international conventions, he was a child in armed conflict. He was the very kind of person that Sergeant Spears was there to help. It would be no different than one of the Chibok girls who was captured in Nigeria, who was convinced by her captors to become a suicide bomber, that's somehow their choice, and we're going to call her a terrorist.
Mm-hmm. What are the lessons to be drawn from this story?
So we should never sacrifice the rights that we've had soldiers fight and die for through world wars and conflicts to make our country the best country in the world with a legal system that I think is second to none in the world.
Well, you know that people said, or oppose the settlement, say it's a slap in the face of the veterans who lost their life, and he's alive.
And there's two separate issues here. What's happened with the veterans, that's an issue of I think, unfairness as well. But it's not connected to what we need to do when somebody is treated poorly in violation of their charter rights and in violation of international conventions. Compensating that person and sending a message to Canada is distinct from how we're treating our veterans. Do we need to treat our veterans better? We absolutely do. It's a distinct question, though.
How can people change their mind in the way that people expect him to be condemned, or to represent the payout for everything what he was, what his family was, the battlefield he was on, he was declared an enemy, combatant enemy from the States. So what would we make out of
That's
that?
all utter nonsense under international law. He was a child in armed conflict. That should have been the end of the matter, and it was a very question that Mr. Scheer wouldn't answer in his press conference. He was a child in armed conflict and had to be accorded the rights that we say he deserved. And he wasn't.
Now, the bosses of CISIS were never deemed responsible, but they supported the actions of their officials out there. One was promoted Deputy Minister of Defense. Others, they became National Security Advisor for Mr. Harper. Should they have been deemed responsible for the action, or it's the whole government that must assume?
I think it's the whole government. When you realize some of the statements that were made by Prime Minister Harper and Minister Taves at the time, if that's the direction they're getting from the top, it's no surprise the people on the bureaucratic side or the intelligence side acted like they did. Mm-hmm. It's truly a shame from top to bottom.
I understand the amount is confidential, but how do we get to determine an amount? What's worth what?
The amount is designed to cover two things. One is to assist Omar in rehabilitation and reintegration into Canadian society, get him an education and get him back to where he should have been had he been treated properly. That's part one. Part two is to send a message that violations of charter rights and international conventions will be sanctioned, so that the next government that wants to sacrifice some of our rights for the sake of national security or for some other political interest will know that it's going to cost. And that cost has to be sufficiently high to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. So it's those two functions.
What do you think, what convinced the government to come to a settlement after, 12 years of legal battle?
I would like to see 3 Supreme Court of Canada decisions, the fact that they had to apologize to Mr. Arar, and just natural senses of justice.
Omar Khadr, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, thank you very much for explaining to us the issues, the legal battles and the issues related to them.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mesdames, Messieurs, merci. Au revoir. À la prochaine.